Start recording. So here we are again. Another day. Uh, another inflated dollar. I don't know. Did you see how much inflation has hit? If you're not getting like a hefty raise, this was not on the plan. I just thought of it just now. If you're not getting a hefty raise, you're basically going to get a pay cut this year because of the inflation. I was looking at it because I got uh, I'm going to add a question for this. Uh, should I get a raise? And so I'm going to start with this. With this topic, all the questions today, I actually pre-selected them. Uh, is going to be a problem. Yeah, and they claim it increases inflation when they pay them what they're supposed to be making. So okay, so just let me tell you a quick little story, and we'll get to the other stuff. By the way, Matt's with us today. Matt, say hi.
Howdy, stream. How's it
Howdy,
going?
sir. I always forget that you're there, and I should at least introduce you. You're there. And as usual, anybody that I know, if you want to participate in Voice and Discord, we are there. So randomly, I was looking at um, I can't remember why, but I got something in the mail or in an email or something that said, here's what you need to make to be on track to get the maximum Social Security benefit in America, which, by the way, is $147,000. If you're not making $147,000 for at least 35 years, according to this article, then you won't hit the maximum benefit, which is $4,500 or something like that per month. And I mean, there's a lot of variation on that, but I mean, that was interesting to me. I mean, one of the main reasons I'm still working is because of the issues with retirement and all that thing. So yeah, I mean, I will not be making that much money for 35 years. That's pretty insane. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is because as a part of that, it had a table. God, I should find this link. It had a table, and it showed the equivalent amount of money every year back through 1997, and you'd be surprised. I mean, it was like back in '97 or something like that. It was under 100,000, right? And it's slowly increased. And then they said that in the table that it wasn't just inflation, that they had also uh, increased the limit slightly. So it's not a direct commentary on inflation, but I got to tell you, hefty rate, yes. So if you, I think it might be fun to do this. I'm just going to suggest it as some advice. It's for myself as well. Um, I think it's probably worth looking at what you're making right now and looking at what that same amount of money would be with accounting for inflation for the last 5 to 10 years that you've been working, and keep that number, like, keep looking at that inflation number, because as it's gonna get worse. There's just no doubt. I mean, in my mind, it's gonna get way worse. Um, so I don't like saying that, but the way the world is right now, I think it's going to be a thing. I don't even know what the inflation rate is today. I didn't see it, but all I remember is that. So so the total amount to get the maximum Social Security benefit was like 147 or something like that. But the important thing is that last year it was $8,000 less. $8,000 less. So I don't know about you, but I didn't get a raise for $8,000, and I bet most of you haven't. So uh, I think today for this hour is going to be, these questions are dedicated to getting and keeping a job, and managing your job, managing the amount of money you're making. It's a pretty common topic. People say, "How do I get what I'm worth?" Without rocking the boat and that kind of thing. So this is going to be the main topic for today. I do not know the inflation rate, but when I read that article, which I think was just a random Google thing that stuck in front of me. I mean, one of the reasons I didn't leave the United States, because I thought about moving, to Europe someplace. My wife's family's from there, or to Canada or something like that, or New Zealand, is because of the Social Security. Because if I move, my benefits for Social Security are come in question and everything. It's also another reason that I took a job. It wasn't the main reason, I mean, I've been running my own company since 2013, but when you run your own company, you don't make money. I mean, you know, my personal income during those 10 to 13 years was almost nothing, because if we counted it all for as company money and stuff, you don't take a salary, that kind of thing, when you're doing a startup. And then we started realizing that we may have just like shot ourselves in the foot when it comes to Social Security, because Social Security looks at 7.9%. Think about that. That means if you're not making 8% more every year, you're getting a pay cut. You're getting a pay cut. And personally, after 10 years, it's worth 40,000 today's buying power. Yeah. So, uh, just to make income, I have to cover costs. That's because the double roll, my margins are thin. Mine too. So when I was running my own business, my margins were razor thin, because I wanted to keep the prices down for the people that were coming and everything, and I took quite a bit of a personal loss because of it. And I mean, that's all fine and ethically cool and everything, but then you get close to retirement age and you're like, I have no record. If right now I could actually still be in really big trouble if it's 35 years. I think that, yeah, I think that my Social Security income could be like really low. So I am running. I'm trying to keep my health good. I'm going to turn down the alcohol. I'm going to try to stay healthy, because I am going to be working for a very long time in order to survive, bottom line, in America. And I know there's people that have it worse than I do, and others, but we live in a very different time. And people used to retire when they were 50 or 60, and then do their thing, or they'd have so much money put away that they would retire early and things like that. That's not happening anymore. At least not it for most people. There's still the 1% that's doing it because capitalism. We're in, and this is Robert Reich's term. We're in late stage capitalism, which means that capitalism's about to reset. Some of you watching this are going to get to see that. I hate to say it, but you are. Some of you watching this right now are going to see capitalism reset. And by reset, if you go back and to listen what Robert Reich has talked about in the past, and he interviewed, conservatives and people. He's sort of progressive, left-leaning kind of guy, but he went and did the whole thing and researched everything. And he went through the latest corrections. So you have like the mortgage crisis that we had. You had the dot-com boom. That was kind of a correction. But the biggest capitalist corrections were like the Depression, which lasted 10 years. And the Civil War was a correction. And you can go back, and he has other ones that he talks about. Dark Ages lower. I am not trying to scare people. I want to try to stay happy and positive. But right now, the inflation is not going to go down. So, okay, this is important, because how are you going to survive in these times, right? And they say the number is 42 years. They say that the cycle of capitalism, on average, resets every 42 years. So every 42 years, capitalism has a serious correction, and it redistributes the wealth again, one way or another. The whole FDR thing. I mean, you can think about it, and then it goes on. Now, the problem with the mortgage crisis is that it just kicked it down the road. Not far away from in China will be bigger than yeah. So I know, I couldn't believe it when I read the number 42. I immediately thought of that. I immediately thought, I was like, does he know something we don't? I have to find out where I got that number from, because I was like, I read it and this is crazy. This is amazing. If you don't know, I'm not going to give it away to you. If you don't know, if you haven't read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you need to read that. But so yeah, every 42 years, debt-based financial systems. So this is pretty much new. Yeah, this is yeah. Well, we went for debt-based. Yeah, well, when the gold standard died, when Nixon took away the gold standard, that's when it started happening. And they talk about that. He talks about. In fact, I want to read. I watched the documentary. The documentary, by the way, again, is Robert Reich's "Saving Capitalism," and it's extremely amazing. And there's another book out there that talk about it, because, capitalism may be one of the better systems that we have today, but it's still flawed. and we got to tweak it. We got to fix it somehow because it's just going to reset every 42 years. So anyway, I really love how he gets into why it's called capitalism, and how capital is not always money. It's just super fascinating. It's like capital changes throughout human history. At a time it was land, at a time it was humans during the slavery, at a time it was oil. During the industrial age, capitalism was industry. It was that was the form. It's not always how much money you have. Climate change, yeah. It is I don't know. I mean, people are trying to reinvent capitalism with all these alternative currencies and stuff. And I mean, while their intent is, sound, I just don't. I don't know. I want us to switch to like the Orville to where there's no more capitalism and the currency is reputation. But we're nowhere near that. By the way, in that science fiction scenario, do you know what destroyed or took capitalism to the next level? The ability to manufacture any item anywhere by pushing a button, which is 3D printing is pretty cool, but we're still a long ways from that. Because then there was no need for materials anymore. Everybody had what they needed, and so yeah, the 3D printers. I know, but we're getting there. I mean, we're still a long ways away. Anyway, so should you get a raise? Yeah, if you want to be able to keep up with inflation, you should be getting a 7 to 8% raise every year, and I always see some music production. If you're not getting a raise, you're getting a pay cut. And this is going to lead into 7%. 7% a year, they said. No, you need to be making... Inflation is... Somebody said in Germany, inflation is 7.8%. 7.9%. 8%. So, and I mean, it depends on what the rate of inflation is. You think it's more than that? Well, that's Germany. Maybe their rate of inflation is pretty low right now. But I think we could probably agree. If you are not getting a 7% raise every year, you're losing money. So if you're going to plan for your career, and that's what the rest of the questions are about, you need to start thinking about that. Did they change how they're measuring inflation to make it look easier? Inflation numbers are calculated a different way than they were 50 years ago, so the real inflation is about 15 to 20%. Okay. I don't know. I'm not an economist. But I tell you what, I'm going to become more of an economist. And under the old metric, it looks really bad, yeah. So your granddad had this saying, quote, you're going to have big problems with these two accountants on marketing. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know what the answers are. I do know that if you don't know, I mean, and they don't teach personal finance in America at all. So my perception of what people are doing in America, particularly younger people when they're entering the workforce, is they're sort of randomly picking the job that is going to pay them enough to meet their needs, and that's it. They're not really going about it any scientific way, and you know what? That's fine. Having a job at all is a big thing, and that's what these are the questions are for, which I want to get to. And we got a lot of great comments from the channel. If you're just listening to the podcast, which we don't have yet, but if you're listening to the podcast or the audio, please make sure you come check out these great comments on the screen at some point. So yeah, and get as much. We don't teach credit, and then get as much debt as you possibly can, and then go out into the world, right? And then inflation is going to increase at the same time. This consumer-based economy that we're in right now is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And the real question is, when is it going to collapse? And how can you survive? And I mean, that sounds like, like really, really right-wing, doomsday, flat earth kind of crap. It's not. That's what's happening. So I think, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. And we're going to get down to, at the end of this, these series of questions. I'm going to show you what I think about it, but I'm kind of, TLDR here. I think the best way to prepare is to get the skills that capitalism rewards. And I think I haven't read Chris's draft yet. I need to go read it. Chris Nova is writing a book, Hacking Capitalism, which I think is going to be important commentary on some of this stuff. But the gist of my advice is, and my own personal plan. I guess we'll see if it works, right? I'm just as vulnerable as anybody. I'm even more so because I'm a contractor, you know. So because I make less because like I make 20 to 30% less than full-time people. People that are employed by, non-contractors, because they have to siphon off that top amount because that goes to tech systems. So, and I'm willing to do that because it's, still a lot of money. So that's where I was going with this. There is a lot of money and a lot of opportunity in tech. Now, you might not like tech, right? If you're like me and you might have rather been a ranger, or something like that, or a cruise director, which is what I was, or somebody like that. That might be what you want to do. But I tell you what, getting tech skills, the industry is always going to need tech skills. They're always going to need it. So it's like hedging your bet, right? There are certain things they're always going to need. They're always going to need the trades, by the way, too. If you can work out learning a trade like electrician or something like that and make $75 an hour, I'm not even kidding. And they'll pay you $16 an hour to learn, and then they'll have an immediate job for you for $75 an hour while you go to, while you learn on the side, how to do Kubernetes or something. So don't rule out the trades. The careers that are always going to be here we're always going to, like they always say, somebody's always going to need to unclog those pipes. Somebody, I know, isn't that sad? It's like, there's more money in tech than there is unless you're going to become a doctor. And even the doctors are struggling. This is really sad. I actually was talking to my surgeon friend, and we didn't get into that part too much, but it just reminded me that at a certain level, the distinction of classes in the capitalist society, like they had the military class and the educator class and the academics, and then you had the urchin class and all that stuff. That's part of the Saving Capitalism book. And it's, and the middle class, right? So you have, military was like upper middle. And yeah, the doctors are going to have to learn tech as well. They already are, right? So one of my buddies who was making crazy money, was a sales rep for a staple gun. That was one of the products, and he had to scrub up and everything, and they would send him into the room with the surgeons and show them how to do the procedure. And he was not a surgeon. Oh my God. He was not a surgeon, but he scrubbed up. They trained him how to use the tool, and then he didn't know anything else about surgery, but he knew how to use that thing. And he would go in there and he would train them, and they would buy so many units at like $1,000 a pop, and that was his job. And he made crazy bank because he was in tech, in medicine, and in sales, and he was good with people. He was good, could really make you feel important and had this like air of authority everywhere he went. And not me. So anyway, this conversation, I'm the one that needs watching. Yeah. Yeah. They're making fun of me a little bit because I got really plastered last night. Sorry, there's no video evidence of that. So, but it was fun. Anyway, don't you dare send any clips right now. So yes, you should be getting a raise. As good as when you felt when you got something. That's okay. And I do think that everybody needs to watch their money, not so much to say, oh, don't be afraid of how much money you're spending. Another thing too, you have to spend money to make money, and I don't mean that to be mean. If this is an investment, I'm paying lots of money for this. Mostly, I'm recycling old equipment that I already paid for. But if you're gonna buy like a $2,500 gaming rig because you really like playing games, and there's nothing wrong with games, get something that you can also, run a small virtual, Kubernetes cluster on, because now you can play games on it and you can use it to learn. You can use it to learn technology and stuff. Just got to make sure it has enough CPUs in it, cores and RAM and all that stuff. So I'm not saying don't spend money and be over, scared of that. But you gotta spend money to save money. And eventually you need to go there. Did I talk you into a Threadripper? I mean, that's probably an unwise use of your money right now. It's just so overpriced. Uh, and there's a lot of stuff you can buy refurbished. And that's another thing about Linux. I'm just going to say Linux will help you, do a lot of amazing things that'll get you. Look, you can go get old leftover hardware and learn Linux on that stuff and get certified and then go in an interview and you can get a job just from that, just from Linux skills. So, well, property is inflation resistant. Uh, Maybe. I mean, I got burned by property pretty badly because we still came out with like a 20% gain on our property even after the bust in 2009. But yeah, yeah. I mean, property. Yeah, I don't know though. I've got mixed feelings on that. I mean, I'm paying all kinds of money for apartment rent, even though it's like double what other people are paying for their mortgage. Um, Anyway, so let's go back to some of these other questions. They are related. Most of the questions are related to employment today. And I burned up first good portion of the first part of the thing on that, but I do think this is important. We talk about it. There are companies that are laying people off right now like crazy. I think though, personally, I think we've got past through the main part of that. I did say like the other day, I didn't think our company had gone through layoffs, and I was reading through the random internal Twitter thing that they have, and people were talking about how to find out if somebody had gotten eliminated in the snap that happened, and to tell whether they were still employed or not. And then I realized that the contract that I'm on went through one, and I never heard about it because I'm a contractor. So we did lose two people from my team, and I don't believe they were. I don't believe they were cut. I think they left willingly because they want to make more money. That's the other thing to survive inflation. Every 5 years, if you are not looking for a new job, you're probably not going to keep up with the inflation rate. So that is a pretty standard piece of advice out there, is that if you want to, particularly when you're young, you want to work hard when you're there, but no reasonable employer is going to expect you to stay there for more than 5 years. They all know because they're doing it too. They're like moving. They're hopscotching up. It's like you have to flip houses to get the money out of them. In real estate, you don't realize any of the value until you sell it, and then you sell it, and then you like go back and get the other thing and do it, which we used to do. My wife and I used to do that. My ex-wife. Anyway, so I think and reducing the cost, your expenses and stuff like that. That's all. And you can work from anywhere in tech, right? So you can work in a place that's got very 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 low cost of living, lower than the rest of the place, right? Employer and reasonable. That brings me to this next question. So thank you for that segue, Lopley. Time to time, this is a long. These questions are very long and they're heartfelt. So I'm just going to read them as they are. This one says, time to time, I feel gaslighted by my teammates. I don't speak their language. I am a foreigner in where I live. We have a bit of an inclusivity problem. I think they meant I also feel like I wasn't able to gain their trust until now. When I suggest something, they react with that they don't like their ways changed. But when the same thing is mentioned by someone 3 times senior in my position, it becomes logical and everybody understands. I am not 100% sure. Maybe I am taking things too much to heart. Should I try and spend efforts to be closer with them, considering potentially after work hangouts as an investment, or should I approach this more like work and be stricter with limits? Are there anything you would suggest? And this one like tugs at my heart. I mean, really bad. In fact, yeah, like I'm a little emotional right now. Because here's somebody who's actually trying their hardest, who's got a job, who obviously was capable to do the job, and is fighting to break in. They've already been trusted by their employers, so they're probably pretty good. And God help them if they're better than the people they're working with, right? Because then it's even worse. Because now you've got, you come off being a water boiler, like I used to get called. And now, I mean, the flip side of this is that um, our society, at least in America, is getting more inclusive in the workplace, particularly in tech. In fact, I don't think it's a secret. Just look around. Look at all of the CTOs of the major organizations right now. Microsoft, there's people from Google, Twitter. There's a lot of change going on in the area of inclusivity, but it's still not there yet. And there, I mean, and I'm a cis white male. I got no room to talk. I'm the kind of the demographic that's pretty much blind to this kind of stuff. And I don't want to start any kind of fight politically here, but I think it's fair to say that I'm I'm probably not even a good person to measure this because I haven't seen it. The only sort of inclusivity problem I ever had, uh, yeah, is that I was Mormon, and in Portland, Oregon, if you can imagine, all places, one of my favorite places on earth, still is, even with all the problems today. Um, I was the most conservative person in Teleport, and I mean, I mean, go watch the Portlandia. The dream of the '90s is alive in Portland, right? Um, yeah, it is, and so Portland, and I got taken under the wing of somebody who was very, very liberal, but very caring. She was so amazing. Lynn, I really appreciate all she did. And, but I really, really hurt her feelings many times because of what I believed. Um, and now they said they don't mention what the inclusivity means. It could be gender. It could be, race. It could be, age, honestly. It could be any of those things. Um, and they're asking specifically the question what they should try to do to increase relations. Now, we're going to get a variety of responses to this. So I'm glad some of you are all chiming in here. We've talked about this before. In Germany, my wife is fond of telling me that in Germany, when you go to work, you say Mr. and Ms., whatever, and you work. And those relationships are only work, and they're professional. And I think we have some Germans in here who might be able to confirm this. And then when you go, home, you have friends, you have social circles, you have chess club and that kind of thing. Same for school. School, you're doing school. You're not getting ready for your track meet at the end of the day or something. So it depends on the culture you're in. I mean, there are cultures where work is work, and we do work, and we're not friends. We talk to each other with respect, and then we leave. And then there's like places in America where you have, in fact, somebody told a story about this the last time we talked about it, where they were approached by HR who told them to stop using Mr. and Ms. because we were all informal. And they were doing that in an American workplace, and they had an HR rep come to them and say, basically, you're freaking people out. Just call them by their first name. And it was very odd. It was very odd to that person. So it just depends. It depends on your culture. I have a feeling, I don't know this for sure, but I haven't had anybody tell me this, but what I've observed from people who work in India, for example, is that they are a little bit more formal at work as well. And there's some pretty heavy competition there too. So that creates a sort of a different way of relating to other people. If you've ever worked with somebody who's super paranoid of losing their job to you, you know what I'm talking about, and it's not fun. There are people who operate from a scarcity mentality, and it's a horrible disease to have at least in an American workplace. If you're constantly checking what you say to everybody and what projects you get and all of that, so that you can manage the perception that you're a better person. And I made a joke about, somebody I worked with. I randomly found them. They were part of the NIST security zero trust security team, and they're a master inventor, and I got a big marble framed thing, and I happen to know what kind of engineer they are because I worked with them. And I mean, and by the way, that was one of these type of people, really all smiles and rainbows and happy, but extremely competitive and, to the point where they will take credit for stuff that other people have done. If you're in any kind of atmosphere like that, I think that you should probably look around because there's probably somebody else who's going to, where it's going to fit better. I'm not saying quit. It's not going to always be the answer to quit. But my advice is to keep your options open. As to the question about whether they should try to spend time and get close to them and hang out with them after hours and stuff like that, I don't know. That depends on the person, and I don't know who this person is. I have very mixed feelings on this point. For what I build, but they better be able to support it. Yeah, right. So as I've said, some of my best, if not my absolute best friends in life, have been people that I worked with. I talked about Brent extensively. This was a guy that I taught Linux to, and he, came from the military. He was very quiet and stoic, and we would have lunch all the time and play chess and talk about different things. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but don't make yourself into some other kind of person because you think that that's going to help you make a connection with them so that your job place will be less harassing and less weird. And this is easy to say, but I know that there are some of you out there listening right now who may not feel comfortable having any kind of social interaction at all. And the first thing I want to say is you don't have to be a social person in order to get ahead in the workplace. It helps. It definitely helps. If you don't know how to approach a conversation, if you end up, if maybe you really know what you're talking about, end up railroading or just like totally, leaving tire treads on somebody's face because you're right and you just didn't have a way to communicate that point without making them look really bad. And I've been guilty of that on occasion. Then yeah, you gotta just know your own stuff. And I don't have an easy answer for this. It makes my heart like really, full because this person is obviously struggling hard. And they are a foreigner where they live. So, I don't know. The closest thing I can relate to this is when I was in Russia, and I was just interpreting, and I didn't. Now I was really fortunate because I was an American, and I was at the time in the 90s, right? All the Russians there that I worked with and other people, they were automatically my friends. It was kind of easy. In fact, at the time, this is not the truth now, obviously we were at war and everything, but at the time in the 90s, just being American made you into something of a rock star. So you didn't really have to do any extra social stuff because they would just all of a sudden like want to be your friend. And I don't know what that would be like on the opposite end of it. If you didn't even speak the language and you lived there and people didn't like it, it'd be like me living in a place, like an American living, someplace where they don't like Americans, like anywhere in the Middle East, for example. Hey, bye, Johnny. Welcome. Thank you for this. Have I been in administrative positions? When I was a cruise director, that was the biggest one. I mean, I was the leader of the highest ranking missionary, I guess you could say, the Mormon Caribbean mission, West Indies, at the time. So, and I did, leadership stuff in high school and stuff, but yeah, no. And let me read this next question. I feel bad leaving that question though, because I know that there's more to say there. That's the kind of thing where I would really want to sit down with that individual and help assess their strengths and their interests and talk about specific problems that are happening with individuals. This is the reason, by the way, I really am going to put a handout to those of you who of invitation. If you are a professional and you've been through this stuff, keep your eyes open for this kind of person. A lot of times they're not going to be saying anything. They're going to just suffer. And I think if you don't have to be a religious person to see people like this in your work environment. It's harder now that we're working remote. Um, but even then, you can kind of sense it, right? And you can like take a proactive step to maybe help somebody like this, because this is not the kind of person that's going to come up to a coworker and say something, or even go to their manager, which is sad. I mean, I feel like that if they had a better manager, that they could bring this up. It doesn't sound like they feel like they can do that. That might be a problem. Yeah, you don't need to be religious to want to help people. So, and another thing, stop with the competition, people. There's plenty to go around. You don't have to lie. You don't have to steal someone else's thunder. You don't have to do any of those things. You might really want a project that somebody else wants because you think it's great and it's really fun, but just be open about that. The really great thing about being a contractor is that I automatically lose all of those competitions. They give me the grunt work. It's not really true. I mean, I really enjoy my job, but when there's like, the harbor registry came to mind. Yeah, so we're porting off Portis. We're getting off Portis at work, and one of the people that we work for, they were really interested in the harbor migration, and I really want to do it too, and so does a bunch of other people, and they just took it and ran with it and did it, and I that's totally fine, and that was one of the things that reminded me I needed to make my own lab here, because then I can install harbor here, and do all of that fun here. And then I'll be a better person at work too. I don't have to fight for a project. I can have fun
You
doing.
just said the word migration, and I got goosebumps.
Yeah, from Portis to Harbor, which is a big one. It's going to be a big one. And your infrastructure team is thinking about Terraform plus Helm, plus customized plus Argo CD. Ooh. So yeah. Engineering question. I don't know. We're gonna find out. We have another 22 minutes or so. Let me read these other questions, and maybe we can get to some technical stuff and leave on that note. If you want to get the questions in, you got to get here earlier and make sure those questions get submitted. So I just kind of picked these. A lot of these came in at once, actually. So here's another one. I'm gonna read it verbatim. So lol looks like I gave up on Discord. I think they meant the chat. I'm gonna delete that. I am in a situation, it says. It looks like I won't have a job when I go back to work after this weekend. I want to get into tech, and I probably have 2 months to do it. I believe this is possible, but I have a hill to climb. I have no resume and no document proof that I have any tech skills at all. I've started doing the 2022 boost and to fill in some of the gaps and plan to complete this as soon as possible. Does anyone have any suggestions? Should I get a part-time job to tide me over? Does anyone want to study together? First of all, it sounds like somebody who's young. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Maybe not. So I'm going to just attack this one directly and not even attack it. I'm just going to jump right in. You can't learn enough tech to get a job in 2 months. I'm sorry. In fact, in order for you to get any entry level tech job, you're probably looking at. I mean, it's more about the hours, not so much about the months, right? I would say, I mean, people will send you to like an 8-week boot camp, and some people get jobs, some don't. I have talked directly to people who finished boot camps and are unemployed, and now they're $10,000 lighter because of the money they invested. Not everybody, but it depends on the climate and everything. And so the answer I have to somebody who is in that position is find another job that's going to pay money and do the tech stuff on the side. And it's going to be hard to do that. You like that stream too? Everybody liked last night's stream. So anyway, it is possible, but you have to be realistic, right? And I've seen too many people get frustrated and shot down because they think that tech skills happen like that. and they type 40 words a minute. They've never even seen Linux. They have no idea what it is. They don't ever use the command line. They use and I don't know what it is, but I'm not. No, I got very hydrated. There's a lot of false perception, and I don't know where it comes from. There's like, to me, it seems like there's like sort of an extreme way of thinking about this. There are people who think that they could never learn tech, that they could never get into. Oh my God, it's such a huge wall. I'll never be good at it. I'll never get it. And so they don't even try. And then there's other people who are, thinking, oh, I need to like just really buckle down and work hard, and I'll have a tech job in 2 months. No, you can't. So the boy. Let me give you an example, okay? I like to tell stories. I tell this one story all the time. I have not used his name. Somebody came to me with a psychology degree, and they were unemployed, and they had some money. They were getting help, and so they spent a total probably of close to about $4,000 with me over 3 years of meeting once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, and immersing themselves in everything that I've covered in the boost, but also making their own projects. They taught themselves Rust in the process as well, which was outside of the scope of even what I did. They're the ones who introduced me to it. And so, but it took, some dedication, and they were living a normal life too. Also, for a time, they were working, part-time, making money to make ends meet, pay the rent and stuff, and also doing the boost with me. And then they would come with me and they would say, hey, by the way, this is probably one of the most aggressive question askers that I've ever mentored. Every time they had a session, they took the whole session over. They had a whole list of things that they wanted to ask me about. And it's one of the reasons that I've been inspired to do the QCA at the end. We're doing, non-technical stuff today, sort of, but I was there for them. So they would come and they would say, okay, what do you think of this? And how about this? And should I learn Go to get a job in this? And I'm like, oh, what do you think of, and why TMUX or what other thing? And he got all that stuff done, he filled the portfolio, made a website with a back end on it, and got a starting job. He got an internship with InfluxDB because they went to the meetup. And got selected to be an intern, which was already a huge thing. And then was one of the very few from the internship that was selected to work full time. And if you can go read the quote from the people that hired this person. It's a huge success story, but it took a crazy amount of work from somebody who was very dedicated, who had enough money to buy a computer and to pay me $50 an hour for that amount of time, which was we were telling the money up later, and it came. I mean, the guy got an entry level job for $100,000 a year. That was his starting salary at InfluxDB. He shared that with me later, and I mean that's low for tech, but the fact that he went from zero tech skills, never even heard of Linux before, to upskilling himself into that salary, and then God, I knows what he's making now. I mean, he's probably doing crazy because he's very, very, very dedicated. And I wish he would be here. I think that our personalities were not perfectly in sync. He's more conservative than me. It's weird because he's more conservative in a certain regard, and he's also more liberal in another regard. And he's just a different generation. but I love him to death. He's a great guy. It's really great working with him. We loved having him over. And he was older. He was older than most of the people. Not all, but many of the people. So I tell you that story because that was a success story, but it took 3 years of him working a little bit every day. He still played games and things like that. So he made time to have balance, work-life balance. If you think you're going to dive in to 2 months of really intense, first of all, you're not going to learn anything because you're going to be so burned out. Look, that's just my opinion. Some people do it. There's actually another very famous story. If you know WGU in America, Western Governors University, you can go look up the YouTube video from the mechanic who finished a computer science bachelor's degree from WGU for less than $4,000 in under a year. I think it's like 6 or 7 months. And he starts out the video saying, I don't recommend this to anybody. He only slept once every 2 nights. He went through the whole thing. He was already a very analytical thinker. By the way, at the end of it, he commented that how annoying it was that they hadn't made an application the whole entire time. They didn't do an application until the end. But he got the degree, and he did. And by the way, if somebody really wants to crunch hard and they want to get a job in tech, and they're able to do this kind of independent thing, I don't get any kickbacks. I have nothing to do with WGU in America, and I don't necessarily like some of the things that they teach. They have a software development degree that I think is useless, but their cybersecurity program is top notch, and they place people in more formal cybersecurity things all the time. I've actually thought about getting a master's from them. We had one guy that I was mentoring who actually did get in, and he was pursuing the bachelor's of cybersecurity with WGU. The reason I like it is because you only pay for the classes you take. So if it's not like it just I mean, if you really are interested and you have absolutely no background in tech, and you're also not okay with just organizing your own learning plan, and you really want to be handheld, then you don't have a degree. I mean, you don't have a bachelor's you don't have any college degree in America. You need that. Then something like this WGU program, which is accredited, is good, right? And they have a computer science one, and they have the cybersecurity one. And I seriously, I've thought about it. I mean, my wife's going back for her MFA, Master's of Fine Arts, and I mean, he got out of it with less than $6,000. So that's my recommendation if you're going to do that kind of thing. But even then, even not sleeping every other night with a young child in his house and a wife who supported him to do it, he documented the whole thing. By the way, I forget his name. You'll have to go find him on YouTube. Just search for WGU. He actually YouTubed the whole thing, and he talked about the whole experience all the way through it. And I mean, it's super impressive, but it took a lot of dedication, and it was not 2 months. And he doesn't talk about ever getting a job. He talks about, and he was already a mechanic, which means he already had a lot of good skills, and he was working a mechanic job. Can you imagine? Whew. I mean, he was probably so tired. But he did it. WGU is also a great place to get any kind of certificates for education and teaching. That's another thing that they're really good at, if you want to do it. Let's see. Do you have any advice on how to stay motivated through books, or is project-based learning superior? I have a hard time pushing myself through books, but I can never see them to finish. In my case, do you think books should be used as a reference? I have a pretty standard answer for this one. You need both, right? And let's replace the books with comprehensive learning resource. Okay. The way I've always helped people with this, projects are more fun. And if you'll notice in the Boost and the Go thing, we're doing project-based learning. So we're just jumping in with an idea of something you want to make, and then researching what needs to be done to make those things. That's, by the way, you might not like him, but that's how Mark Zuckerberg talks about how he learned as well. He had an idea, and he and his sisters, I guess, and he would go make it, work on it a little bit, and then modify it and learn a little bit more, and then modify it. That's project-based learning. It's really fun, and that's but you're gonna have gaps. You're gonna have gaps. You're gonna do things. You're not gonna even know what some of the things are called. And so what I always tell people is you need two forms of education. You need the project-based fun stuff, and you need some other comprehensive form of learning, sometimes a book, maybe a video series, maybe whatever, that's going to take you through and tell you what you don't know. The hardest part of learning in a project-based sense, or any sense, is not knowing what you don't know. And I have put the brakes on it, but I was trying really hard to come up with a program for, kind of modeled after, believe it or not, the scouting program, where here's all of the things you need to learn, and they don't tell you how to learn those things. They just tell you this is what you need to know. And that's half the battle. Half the battle is knowing the list of things that you need to learn to get a specific job, and then you got to marry that up with what it is you want to do, right? And in the scouting program, for better or worse, they have merit badges that are a specific thing, and then they have milestones along the way that are like so many merit badges together and thing. And that's actually a very comprehensive, organized way to go about managing project-based learning. And I really something called Occam's badges is the thing that I was working on last Christmas or so. I really want to make that. If you want to help with that, let me know. It's just one of the many things to put on the list. I've got to, pay the bills. I got to do everything. But if we could just get the community to come together and say, here's the list of the things you need to learn, to work in this particular career path. These maps that people have, DevOps map, and the yellow, and there's like a lot of these things, and they're super popular because they address that specific thing. You might not agree with everything that's on the list, but you have something to disagree about, and you can like go through and talk about it. When you're just going into the thing, you have no idea. So, I'm in this position right now, right? So, I want to make these 3 machines have their storage available, right? Well, now I'm hearing about Sept, and then I'm like, okay. And then some are saying use Rook, and others are saying use this other technology. I've never even heard of these technologies before. So, R in RWX is for research and reading. You've got to go figure that stuff out. It takes time. But if you have been able to identify a relatively good comprehensive resource, book or otherwise, then you can supplement your individual projects that are fun with sort of the boring stuff of, reading through and making sure you've covered it all. And in my case for Go, for example, that comprehensive thing is literally the specification of the Go language, and Go essentials and things like that. For Bash, it's the Bash man page, very dry, horrible reading. But that's how I figured out how to do complete -C, which nobody knew about. Nobody uses it, but I found it because I was reading through the comprehensive part. So if you're setting forward on your own autodidactic learning path, having a comprehensive thing as well as some project-based thing is a thing. Now, it just so happens that universities, a lot of times, good ones, they fulfill both of those things. The projects they make inevitably are not fun to do, but I think you can get the same thing out of university if you can identify some good reading material. One of the reasons I'm so motivated to do the whole knowledge exchange grid is because the more people who know, the people who are in the business, and by the way, one of the reasons I was happy to go back to work for corporate America, I've been learning all kinds of stuff because I've been out of the game. I've been out of the game for like 5-8 years. I did a lot of really great things during that time, making my own stuff that I needed, but I didn't need Kubernetes in my tiny school. I didn't need it. Did people need to learn Kubernetes? Probably. So now I'm, exposed to the thing all over again. So, and keep yourself working no matter what you do. I don't think you should quit a job and just fully dedicate yourself unless you're independently wealthy for some reason. And even then, I don't know. I don't recommend that. Try to keep the balance there. Yeah, but it's hard to stay motivated with books because you don't, T.J. Holowaychuk, who invented Express and a bunch of other things, his advice when he's asked, you can go watch the video, to learning is to find something that seems to be relatively good and standard in the industry, code-wise, and remake it from scratch, even though it already exists. And he says his exact words are, you never know, you might end up learning something and making it better. So we're talking about one of the most prolific. The guy is so prolific in the development scene, that, and self-taught, by the way, never stepped a day in school, that he's considered a myth. And you can actually go read, and there's conference talks on whether the dude is a myth, even though there's video footage of him. And Hangover is great. There's no hangover. So this morning it was, but yeah. There's a way to get over a hangover. You know how to do that? How do you avoid a hangover? You take 2 before you go to bed. If you're drunk, if you remember to do this, take 2 ibuprofen, assuming you can. It's not going to kill you. Take 2 ibuprofen and drink a full glass of water. People were asking me more about my inebriation last night. So there you go. It kills me. All the tutorials, especially on YouTube, it's all guides are like basically download this package and profit. Yeah. No. No, you have to like mess with stuff in order to learn it. And you're going to forget it. Right. So you should make project-based learning a regular part of your routine if that's what you're going to do. So yeah. Question. We're getting to close to the end here. I know this is not no painkillers with alcohol. Kids, don't do this. Ibuprofen, you can do it. Not pain. Those aren't painkillers. No, before you go to bed. Chugging a body about a Pedialyte. Said hi to her in Russian. Это зависит. Привет. Салют. Здрасте. Она говорит по-русски или нет? Best advice in Russian. If you follow through the tutorials, you're not going to face problems that show up when you don't have a script to follow. Exactly. It's anti-inflammatory. Yeah. Do you coach engineers? Yes, I do. I have anyway for a long time, and all that's happening here now, though. And the myth I was talking about, T.J. Hollowaychuk. Do a search on YouTube for T.J. In fact, I think I have a video on him. T.J. Hollowaychuk, I think is how you spell his name. No, that's not it. That's his name. You can find him. I bet aspirin is okay. Ibuprofen is, I think it's okay. I mean, I've been doing it. I haven't died. Don't listen to me. That's just what I've been doing. Somebody's going to die and they're going to sue me. So don't listen to me about any medical thing. There. Has anyone ever received a job from your Go Kubernetes recruiter after learning the skills? Yes. Oh, I think they're specifically asking about my current recruiter, and the answer to that is no. No, I have a recruiter that calls me every month and checks in and sees if I have anybody for him, and I have nobody because I don't know what's going on. People are just not going through the record. I think there might be something more. Look, my nice things file is filled with people from Twitch for the last 2.5 years or so who have gotten jobs, who have credited participation in our community in any number of different ways as a major factor in them getting a job. So that said, so that means, yes, people are getting jobs by learning the stuff that we're talking about here. And it's not, obviously it's not just me. It's like there's lots and lots of people like Quartimer and all these amazing people in our community who are exchanging information and helping each other out. And I'm not the only one. I mean, Learn with Leon is doing this. The Premagian has been doing this for a while, helping people out. I haven't heard about the job listings yet over there, but there are other people. I imagine even Sam Griffin, people are watching, Sam Griffin learning things from them. I don't even know if Mastermind is still doing anything. Does anybody know? I haven't seen Mastermind online for a long time. I don't know why. Mastermind was somebody else that was teaching online. There are other communities you can join where you can learn and get a job. So this question was specifically about my recruiters is still got his hands in the air. Like, give me people. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while either. Anyway, I need to be active, have skills for someone to know me better. Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, if you're not getting the job, I would definitely... What is this quarter? I'm kind of worried. Oh, look at you. Wow. It's pretty crazy. Look at all that fun stuff. New system install. Holy cow. It's fun. So that's a nice little piece of code you got going. It can source and install and get autocomplete. Wow. That's super cool. So it just takes a lot of time to learn things and just be, you got to be patient with yourself, I think that's the important thing. You really do need to be patient with yourself. A special set of skills. Skills that make a nightmare for people like you. I can do that. Okay, so here's another question from Tony Fa, which I think was posted to the whole group here. This is a point of conversation, and we'll end with this one. Um, if someone is trying to get a new job, are there any red flags people should pay attention to that might indicate a toxic work environment? By toxic, they're not talking about excessive inebriation. Yeah, we've been talking about that all day. Go back and watch the VOD, Quartermer. Yeah. So you're on YouTube, by the way. Wave. Every once in a while, we'll have people like wander in here while we're making a video, and they don't know what's going on. I put a big recording sign, but they still don't know. That's a red flag. Yeah. I mean, if you're replacing somebody, the first thing I would do is I would say, well, why are you hiring me? By point blank, I would say, why are you hiring me? I mean, what is the need here? Wolverstad, how are you? Felonies, red flag. Look, the people hiring you, if the people hiring you, here's some red flags, okay? I mean, there's so many red flags, it's impossible to talk about. This red flag that you're asking about is specifically, we're making videos right now, Wolverstad. So just letting you know. We're almost done. Specific red flags indicating a toxic work environment. There's a million red flags to look for when you're like, not a million, that's hyperbole, but you know, I don't know. This is a question for people who, you know, I don't know. I don't have any personal experience with this. And then we merged. Oh, well, I've had that happen before too. Striker, how are you? Gut feeling? Yeah. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. I think there's no way you can know you're going into a toxic work environment unless they have you meet the team and the team just gives you the wrong impression right off the bat. And not taking a position that's good for your career because of your some gut feeling when you first met them that you maybe misjudged them. I mean that's like me not going for a second date with my current wife because I didn't have a really great first encounter with her because she well, that's the story for another day. Because we met online and then we was kind of awkward and we were drinking coffee and then she kind of walked away and we didn't really hug or anything, and the only light at the end of that tunnel was while we were in the parking lot. I kind of went back to my car and I went, I'm going to try this anyway. So I shut the door and I walked back and I gave her a hug, and then it felt like stuff, it warmed up a little bit. I mean, our interaction, not, so, but the point was, if I had made an impression, a decision in that moment, it would have been the wrong one. So I don't think it's completely. I mean, look, how do you define a toxic work environment? That really is the first question. What is a toxic work environment to you? That was a good hug. I don't know what toxic is for you. So the reason I can't answer this question for you is, number one, I don't know what toxic means to you. And two, I mean, right now, if there's one thing that we've seen in this massive culture war that's like taking over our entire humanity, that some people's idea of toxic is radically different from other people's idea of toxic. And I wish that they would all just learn to get along and just work together. Besides, it's a workplace, So what's toxic? Toxic means when you raise your hand, you get ignored because you don't look like them, or you don't. Yeah, that is toxic, right? I mean, everybody should have an equal say, but maybe the culture doesn't want you to. Try that in the military. I mean, that's another thing. All of these like happy questions that we're making right now, and question and answer sessions, if you try to apply these, well, I don't want to work in a toxic environment, and you go to a like military boot camp, where they're dropping F-bombs every third word, and they're like telling you, and they're like breaking you like in a SEAL camp or something. It's a totally different scenario. Is that toxic? No. To some people, it's like absolute pure joy. They love it. That's not toxic to them. To other people, that's the most possible toxic environment you could ever be in. And so, forced to use Windows. There you go. Ask them if you're going to be forced to use Windows. Yeah, that's a good one. I wish I had. I wish I had asked that question because I am. Actually, they gave us a Mac now. So, but I think the advice that I have here is that if you're trying to get a new job, that the best thing you can do is have them give you, before you accept the job or whatever, have them talk about what you would be doing day to day, have them walk you around and meet people. Maybe have them give you a tour of the facility we're going to be living and working and stuff like that. And I do think that if you listen to your heart, to the spirit or whatever you want to call it, that you will have some insight, but don't ignore your brain. People that make decisions entirely from their heart get in trouble all the time. People that make decisions entirely from their brain get in trouble all the time. You have to combine the two. Use your heart and your mind. Use your heart and your mind to make all of your decisions. And don't let either one, quiet the other one. Because if you do, you'll have this emotional thing that'll be completely against what your brain knows is the right thing. And don't listen to that at all. And those are the only two organs involved in that decision, by the way. Yeah, anything else that's talking to you, just tell it to be quiet. That goes for relationships too. Actually, that's not completely true. If it's a relationship decision, then you actually have to listen to that other participant. We'll say. Anyway, probably time you put listen to your heart. You're trying to cue up Roxette. Oh, jalopy. Okay, that's it for today. What about my stomach? I know. Huh. Yeah. Does your stomach have, we laugh, but there's people who probably want to listen to their stomach because they have no, like, we're not going to get into the whole thing about all the different, humans who've tried to center emotion in a particular organ. I mean, that's where the whole heart thing comes from, right? Obviously, emotions are happening in your head. They're not happening in your heart, but you just feel it here because you're all warm and fuzzy. Your stomach has a lot of neurons. It does. In fact, their stomach is an amazing instrument. Yeah, that's a different question. Actually, if you have not seen the documentary The Second Brain about the stomach, I strongly encourage you to watch. It's pretty amazing. It's really fun. It's really fun. It's really well made. It's all about how the stomach evolved. There's more neurons in a stomach than a dog brain, and that this thing kind of came after the fact. The brain in our head was way later, and then it kind of we needed that more. When you're in love, your head blows up. Oh my God, yeah. So, and I mean that's another thing. You might end up making a decision about the workplace. It's what, we're going to have a lot of experience with this very shortly. So stay tuned. I can now tell everybody here, and I'll end on this. But my wife and I are going to. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but the official plan is, in the end of October, we are going to be touring the Northwest. I mean the Northeast, and we're going to be all over. We're going to be in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. And my wife is touring Masters of Fine Arts programs to decide which one to go to. And we will be spending a day or two at KubeCon. So, we're going to be right by Boston, actually. Mm-hmm. Yep, Boston is one of the ones that we're going to be very close to. We're going to be... and I am trying to decide how much to dox of that trip. Given the fact that I will be streaming a lot of it, and I mean, because my wife's going to be with me, I don't want to put anybody at risk here. It's that kind of thing. But anyway, so and there's a million reasons that I shouldn't tell you that I'm not going to be in my apartment during that time. But I promise you that yeah, Cleveland will probably be in Cleveland too. Yeah. So did I buy a shotgun? Twitch taking notes from YouTube to work their platform by implementing ads on all. Oh my God, yes. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much of that I want to tell everybody, but there's if anybody's planning anything nefarious, I just want to tell you that we have countermeasures. Yeah. More dumb people are banned already. I don't know what the deal is, but people love to like come in here and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've gotten pretty good with the ban hammer lately. I've gotten pretty fast. So on that note, let's leave and we will do what is necessary to clean up this apartment. What type of locks on my apartment? Uh, the one that has arsenic laced needles that shoot into your fingers. So, dude, I feel so sorry for anybody who would even try anything like that. Yeah, yeah. Why would you say that? Don't say stuff like that. Nicole, you can be unbanned later, but don't say stuff like that. All right. Bye, everybody. It's probably time for me to stop recording.